So I'll introduce myself first. I'm Sherri Wilson. I've been an SVP partner for more than 15 years, and I'm in my first few months as lead partner with SPEB.
And I'm Regina Elma. I have the honor and privilege of serving as the current executive director for Somali Parents Education Board, SPEB. Soon will be known as Supporting Partnerships in Education and Beyond, as we have grown outside of our only focusing in Somali community, but now focusing really in system change, in cross-cultural works and PIPAC and immigrant communities. Yeah. And I'm really glad to be here with you today and appreciate having you as our lead partner.
I'm really happy and honored to be the lead partner and look forward to the work that we're going to accomplish together.
Yes.
So tell us about how you came to this work and how you came to found SPEB.
Yeah. I come from a background of a lot of social justice work. I grew up in the Washington, D.C. area. So even when I was in high school, I was very much involved and very much active in social justice work. But as I came into my adulthood, I was actually in banking and corporate. So this is like a whole new thing for me, not new, but I love for this work because it's a non-negotiable work. And making sure that we're in service and centering those that historically have been furthest away from access and haven't been served, and really centering racial equity work. But when my firstborn entered kindergarten, I was still new to Washington. I came here 2011 and she was entering kindergarten in 2012. And that's actually the education system wasn't designed for them, need to be the ones that actually like reimagine and design what equitable education that is centering Black and Brown children looks like and feels like, and really like centering those voice and making sure that we're designing that according to the lived experience of those that it hasn't served. I came to learn a lot about South King County and the work that's happening, the Roadmap Project, and the big work that was just like, like making sure that we are using data and actually challenging what's coming out of the data. And then few of my friends and I, as I get to know the community, we started talking about like why our children are experiencing what we experienced as immigrants when we first came here, and that our parents, had language barrier, but our children now have access through us because we are part of the working class. I'm going to be very transparent to say that my children do have a lot of access through me. But at the same time, they were still seen same as, the same community that, like it was just, they were experiencing things in school, and I was experiencing as a parent that I felt like I wasn't received how I thought I was going to be received. And that's when we founded SPEB. So 2014, it was really focusing only in serving the Somali community. And then fast forward very quickly in 2016, going into 2017, we were learning that everything that's coming out of other communities is the same thing that the Somali community was expressing, and that this is not about one particular community. It's really about centering who the system hasn't served and who it's not going to serve. And then in end of 2017, we made a decision to really think about, like, when we think about serving community, making sure that space is a space that's a container for all community members that want to participate, particularly centering Black and Brown families, and recognizing that, like historically, we have never served Black and Indigenous communities. So when we fight for immigrant communities, especially African immigrants, really thinking around like, what has been here before us and what has been done. And engaging in that. We shifted into really thinking about system, capacity building, advocacy, and then data work. So that's now the big full picture structure of what SPEB is. Like those are like the biggest, I think like the biggest legs that's holding our umbrella right now. And then our work is really focusing on the full child, the whole family, and the ecosystem. So like from before even a child is born all the way to beyond like high school, like college, so cradle to career, and really thinking around like how are we participating in conversations and making sure that we're centering community and doing co-creation with community, and really thinking around like an ecosystem that can cultivate a full human being to be their best full potential human being.
It's amazing to see how the organization has evolved over time, because when we first met, I was on the Education Collective Action Team. SPEB was just coming together and just beginning to do their institute, their Transforming Partnership in Education Institute. Can you tell us a little bit about that program and how it has evolved?
Yes. So Transforming Partnerships in Education is a learning institute for families and educators. It's a space where we are modeling what collaborative system change looks like and actually involving those people that are operating within the system. In 2018, the fall of 2018 is when we launched the first cohort. Now we're in 2020, even though we're in COVID, our year 3 is about to kick off October 24. It has evolved so much because we first started with 2018 is like when SPEB first came into oh, we're going to be an organization. Like, we're not just like a volunteer based. We need to connect with donors. And the first funding we got was, from SVP, Neighbor to Neighbor, and seed money from Stolte. And it was we started with I think our first year, literally we had I think 55,000 to operate a full program. And that program right now is, it has become a prime focus for SPEB, because we have seen the impact it has when a family and a principal or an educator partner and really think around how are we collectively are making transformative changes together? How are we impacting others in our community? Now we are not just, we have educators and families from multiple districts. Even North Thurston is going to be a part of our cohort next year. That's outside of South King County, right? Transforming Partners in Education is partnering with higher ed. So we are doing partnership work with Dr. Ann Ishimiri and building the data around actually the impact it has and the measurements and indicators of how do you evaluate authentic engagement and authentic collaborations, particularly designing tools and systems for authentic community and family engagement and centering co-creation. It has evolved that now Transforming Partners in Education has an advocacy component, a data component, an early learning component, capacity building and collaboration component. It's a space where prior to COVID, when that space is being facilitated, it's really about celebrating leadership and the brilliance of community, but then also challenging our partners in system of how are you taking this back to your own district, to your own school? And it's not just, it's not a workshop or a training, it's creating system change actions. So an example is, the community members and the system people from a district or a building, they partner around designing a community action project that could actually influence that space, whether it's a building. So a prime example is that in our first year, we had a strong cohort from Lake Ridge Elementary School in Skyway. And I love Skyway because we do such a huge advocacy for Skyway, even though I don't live there. And the principal, a person from the district, Cheryl William Jackson, who we have had the fortunate of being a partner with her, they all collaborated around thinking around actually, how do you make the school a community school and open its doors after hours? And then we received, so Lake Ridge piloted a free 12-week after-school program where SPEB was the lead partnering organization, and the district, provided the space. Some teachers stepped up and supported. Cheryl was there. We were also able to leverage resources from the YMCA to hire young people from Skyway to serve younger people. And that has become a model, and the district applied for a King County sports amateur grant the following year. And in 2019 fall, we had programs in all the 4 schools in RIS. Evening times, weekend, we even had soccer on the weekends, drums, African drums. So that was done by the community, right? SPEB only just planted a seed. And to me, those are system change, because now, you know, when we don't know what we don't know, and sometimes we think like it's so complex, but when you can model it and then you're like, take it, and it was led by the district and the community in collaboration, in partnership, and it has completely transformed the landscape now. Because now we're like, okay, we know the capacity that lives within our community. We just have to be very smart and strategical around how we leverage resources and how we bring that to spaces that we need, because Skyway doesn't have a community center. We don't have, you know, a recreational opportunity, and our, like, the schools are those spaces for that community. So, and I applaud the district for being a thought partner and receiving that in a very authentic way, and collaborating with who they serve.
Fantastic. And I really appreciate the sort of strengths-based approach, the finding strength within community. And, you know, we've all heard a lot with COVID about the negative aspects and the inequities in education, but I know you've also noticed some positive experiences with your families that you work with during this time. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yes, you know, I do want to recognize and be very mindful that there are a lot of our community members that COVID has impacted in a very determined way, right? In an irreversible way. Job loss, health crisis. You know, we already had a pandemic that existed. Now we have another pandemic that's on top of it. But one thing that I will say is that now more than ever, particularly PIPAC and immigrant communities are mobilizing themselves like never before. Anyone who comes to me and tells me it's hard to engage families, I'm gonna be like, do you wanna meet me on Zoom 5 p.m. today? Because I will get 100 parents for you. And I think that people, particularly like the families we work with, they really are leaning into each other. They're creating peer-to-peer collaboration. They're exchanging ideas. They're finding what it means to be in community and with community with your neighbors. We've heard stories like a working mom saying that my neighbor is keeping an eye on my kids while I'm at work and making sure that they're getting their schoolwork done, right? We've heard stories of some of our parents really being innovative and utilizing the youth within their community to do literacy and reading and math in the evening for their kids. And SPEB is modeling that, because we do have a youth that is collaborating with us through another organization that's one of our partners, the Duwamish River Clean Youth Action in South Park. They are paying for a youth to work with us 10 hours a week. And that youth, you know, she's working with younger kids literacy, and we're like modeling that so that families can actually do it themselves, right? But we also have parents who are saying like, you know, their community members who are saying like, oh, I am willing to, this is my strength, like literature is my strength, math is my strength, you know, social emotional learning and like modeling activities my strength, and they are like building off each other, right? And you know, that's not the case for everybody. We do know that there's a lot of families that virtual learning and remote learning is very challenging, but I want to embrace and celebrate the resilience of those families and those community members that know in the hardest time, they know that they're rising above the occasion, and they really are modeling amazing things. I mean, you heard what the parents had to say in the Seattle Times, those 10 parents that helped co-write that article. And those are the things that I want to hold dear and celebrate, and make sure that post-COVID, we're actually honoring their brilliance, and we're taking their, you know, what they're bringing forward to actually incorporate in redesigning and rebuilding and building new from scratch in our systems, right? Now more than ever, I think our school districts really understand what their families mean to them. I want to celebrate some of our districts that are really trying to be very innovative and are asking, they're asking, right? They don't know what they don't know, and they're asking, they're leaning into community members, they're leaning into their families. And I applaud like the innovation around our youth, you know? We even have parents, like for a prime example is that some of our Somali parents, they partnered with educators back in Somalia to help their children with math, right? So it's I mean, the innovation and what we're seeing, and this is the right time. If we're ever going to crack things in the system, this is the right time, because no matter what their language, what their experiences, families are like mobilizing. We know that we have to keep the 6 feet distance, but they're like, where do we need to be? Who do we need to talk to? Why are we not engaging like legislators? You know, we know we can't go to Olympia, but we can do a Zoom meeting with them, right? And those are like that. I want us to hold that. I know it's hard time right now, but we have to hold their brilliance and we have to celebrate their innovation and how strategical they are in like leveraging resources, right? Like human capacity resources, like what's in my neighborhood, and you know, the centering humility and really showing up for one another now more than ever. I'm being mindful of like who is hurting in my neighborhood, and how do I be a good steward of the village I live in, and how do I show up for that? So those are like I think the things that I take in at the end of the day, and I'm like, today was a good day, right? I know it's hard, but it, you know, like, and I want to celebrate those families and those community members, and continue to have those folks kind of like fill my cup, because this work.
Yeah, I mean, this has been an incredibly challenging time, but seeing the way communities have come together and stepped up for their families and for their neighbors and the broader community has been amazing.
Yeah.
And I know that SPEB is working hard during the pandemic, but also has ambitions for helping not only individual communities, but really reforming education statewide. So tell us more about that.
Yes. So, you know, this is something that we always wanted to do, to participate at, you know, advocacy is our biggest, like everything that we do is advocacy, right? Advocacy here, like everything. So, and we thought like, we knew we wanted to engage. We have been engaging with certain legislators, the ones that are our allies, and thinking around like, why is it this, why is it that? And we've been engaging with district and local elected officials. But in the midst of COVID, community asked us, we are never going to go back to the way things used to be. And there is an advocacy project that has been a dream, and it's coming to flourishing. We call it New Wave of Advocacy, advocacy through a social justice healing. And in the last 2 years, especially in the Institute, few things that came up was actually challenging the word advocacy and redefining it. And our, particularly our Black and Brown and immigrant families said that, you know, advocacy is very traumatic for us. The way that mainstream has led advocacy is very traumatic for us. And they said that, you know, we need to define that word in a way that is doing that advocacy work is also like part of our healing. It's healing our ancestors, it's healing us, and it's creating a norm for generations to come. Advocacy needs to be embedded in preschool, in daycare centers, in our homes. It has to be part of who we are, and we need to be in community, seeing ourselves and making sure that our children understand that you have a responsibility to where you live, your ecosystem, and that you're an advocate and a champion for your neighborhood. We owe it to each other, to our sense of humanity. And, you know, we told them, what would that look like? And they say that, you know, when we advocate, at the end of that day, it should be because we know the work that we want to do. It's part of who we are. We have to do it. It shouldn't be that something bad happens and then all of a sudden the drums are being hit. They said that re-traumatizes us, and that advocacy needs to be embedded part of our normal culture. It has to show up in education. It has to show up in every space. So through that new wave of advocacy, advocacy through social justice healing, right now we're in that space of like, who do we need to partner with, building coalition members around that, but most importantly, really rolling out a mass fundraising strategy to kind of think about like, so that we don't fail community, because consistently things are like planted and there's no like to hold it, and the responsibility of like the next 5 years, this is the work scope that we have to do. So through that, we are hoping that partners will step up and collaborate with us in that and partner with us. Other organizations will step up and partner with us, and that we can secure staffing, resources, and capacity for this work for the next 5 years, because we have, our work is cut out for us. So some of the things that came out of our conversations and thinking around what does the advocacy work look like for us is actually challenging basic education funding, challenging the kind of like the gap between community and schools, that they are not one of the same, and redesigning that, and then really questioning where our systems value lie, like OSPI, the state level, and then the local districts. And when we talk about value, is that, you know, where you're putting your resources, right? We know that our schools, our educators are overwhelmed. They don't get paid enough. At the same time, we don't have counselors. We are not centering social emotional in every building. Our students with special needs are farthest away from opportunity, and the data doesn't lie. Our Black and Brown and Indigenous families are not, students are not being served, right? So it's really a holistic approach, and we're not the first one to do it. So many people before us have been having these conversations, but we just want to, we want community to actually take this home and actually crack the cracks that we need to crack, and not be in this, like, you know, limbo where like we're playing whack-a-mole, right? You bandage one thing, another thing pops up, another thing, and but we're saying actually we need to pause and do a full circle analysis on what we need to do, and put a strategy out, and really partner with our state legislators, elected officials, local district leaders, and really say that this is, we're all going to benefit, because generations to come, we're going to lay a foundation for generation to come, and we're going to do it in a way that is not traumatizing. It's not rushed. We want to give it time, and we want it to be co-designed and co-created and led by those that this system serves.
Great. I always leave our conversation so inspired by you. And so if other SVP partners are equally inspired, are there things that they can do either in the short term or the long term to help advance your vision, to help advance SPEB's work?
Yes. You know, I always say that being in community and being in relationship is like the biggest asset. And that's how we like to approach. We want our partners at SVP to really be champions, and they have been champions for us, right? Otherwise we wouldn't be an SVP, like Investee for multi-year. But really, when I mean being champions, I mean really like, think about how do we elevate this advocacy work, because it was designed and created by community, right? It's not Regina from SPEB, like it was in community, with community. And we bold and brave parents throughout not only South King County, but beyond South King County, in North Thurston and Pierce County, that really want to take this stretch and really like push it forward. You know, I think another selfish thing that I'm going to ask SVP partners is that for those partners that want to be bold and brave and help kind of push our fundraising strategy forward, make the connections, build that network, you know, host a virtual fundraiser if you have the capacity, but engage in you know, and also like, we know that in our partners, there's so much expertise that lies there. So right now, one of the things that we need to do is actually kind of draft what that advocacy policy work looks like, right? We don't have a policy strategy person in our organization right now, and that's the next person that we want to hire. We also don't have a person that can, we have a fellow, but like putting data component to that. So like those things, right? So yeah, so like those are like all the many things that our partners can support with, and we love partnering. And for other organizations that do advocacy that want to partner with us, as long as it aligns with what community wants, and they're going to center PIPAC immigrant families, we would love to partner with them. So like those are like, you know, all the things that I think any partner can do and participate in, and engage in conversations with us. We're always here.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Do you have any final things you'd like to say?
No, I just want to say thank you so much. I appreciate our partnership and relationship with SVP and all of our other partners. I'm going to embarrass you. So happy birthday.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure to spend this time with you.
Thank you.